Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we're back finally with our very last episode of Stranger Things, episode 8. Um, yeah, we're finally here. And you guys would have heard me say this over and over again. Season 1 is tough to beat. So far I've enjoyed season 3. You know, I've been overwhelmed. It's thrown a lot of callbacks for me for the 80s, The Blob, The Thing, Terminator, a lot of movies that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I was just happy to see them represented here. And with that, season 3 is definitely, risen above season 2 in terms of my favorite so far, but season 1 still remains at the top. Now, there's still one episode left, obviously, and by the end of this episode, I could very well eat my words, and season 3 could turn out to be even better than season 1 was. But season 1, just the world building, and in some ways, how it starts with the boys in their basement, playing D&D, and there's something about um, that callback to your childhood, right? And reminiscing about the old days, and they were there just being boys, and then they get thrown into this huge government conspiracy and this supernatural world, and that is something that's going to be tough to replicate. And one of the things that I enjoyed most about season 1 was that was the guys being together in a group, even when 11 joined. So it's not, I don't want to say guys, I mean everyone. When they're together in a group, they're strongest when they're together. And season two had them go in different directions, and to some extent season 3 um, did the very same thing here, and in an attempt to develop the characters to show that they've grown, they're no longer kids, and that works in some ways, and in other ways it works against what the show has built over the past 2 seasons, right? Nobody wants to grow up, basically, is I guess is what I'm saying. Nobody wants to grow up. We do it because we have to. It can't be helped, right? So season 3, it's still phenomenal. It's done a fantastic job. I'm still gonna hold out judgment until I see this episode. It could be fantastic. It could blow my mind completely, and I could see at the end, okay, season 1, you're taking a step down. Season 3, you're at the top. So very interested to see how this final episode. There's obviously a lot to wrap up in one episode. I said last time that I didn't think they'd kill um, the Mind Flayer last episode, because in with Stranger Things, the very last episodes, it still has a lot happening. It's not a wrap up episode, right? So I'm expecting a whole lot to happen here. On the last episode, we for the most part, we have our team together. At the end there, Dustin's group and Mike's group are now together. The only thing missing from the equation is, of course, Joyce and Hopper, who had their run-in with the Terminator once again. I suppose I said this was a win for Hopper, because he did take him down. He cheated completely. He was wearing a vest, but Hopper got the drop on him, so I imagine there's going to be another round before things are out. So round 3, right? Hopper won, Terminator won. It's now time for round 3. I don't know if we're going to get that conclusion. I hope we do, because it's like it feels like a mini story that we've been following, the adventures of Hopper and the Terminator, right? And we have to see how that ends. We must see how that ends. There has to be a final showdown for those two. Um, but Joyce and Hopper, they lost Smirnoff, Alexei, but they now know where the lab is, so they should be heading there. The kids are already there, but they have a problem now. 11 is out of the picture, or at least I suspect she will be. But perhaps not, because this is the last episode. I don't think they'll. Normally you would sideline the main character, at the beginning or in the middle somewhere, but not at the end of the series. So I imagine she's still going to be in it. She's just more than likely she's just going to be a lot weaker than she was before. I don't know how they're gonna get that piece of the mind flare out of her leg. If she can use her powers to pull it out, or they can cut it out. But they have to do something, right? They have to do something. It would not do well to have the mind flayer, to have her under the mind flayer's control. But I don't think we'll get that far. As I've said before, my prediction is that this is going to come down to Billy, because the writers have done an excellent job. They've put so much focus in that character himself. Then he must have, he must have some other purpose outside of just being a host for the mind flayer. Right, so I suspect Billy will be the mind flayer's downfall. 11 will help and others will help, but I believe it will be Billy. They still need to shut the machine down, because there's still the possibility of the gate opening and its main body crossing over. So I don't know if maybe that's going to be Joyce and Hopper's job. It would be weird if this season ends without them actually meeting with Joyce and Hopper. They're on different missions right now. I was hoping that their paths would cross, but we're at the last episode. It could very well mean that Joyce and Hopper will go to the lab and take care of closing the gate, while Mike and Dustin's team would actually take down the piece of the mind flayer that's here. So they may not actually converge until after the dust settles. It would be odd, but it wouldn't be all that unusual. I would prefer that they meet. I would prefer that they meet, but either way works. So that is my prediction for this episode. I suspect, as has been the case with season 1 and season 2, that this will actually end with a cliffhanger as well. To give us something to look forward to for season 4. So let's get into it. It's on the gas. So they heard a transmission over the radio about the kids, so they're heading there. So they'll meet, I hope.
There's something in there.
Alright, Jonathan. Jonathan hasn't really done much this season, actually. So I guess this is his moment. She's gonna have to do it with her powers. I should have done that first. Really in there. Thanks. Kill it with fire. Quickly. Don't let it get away. Oh, come on. Please be one of the good guys. Oh, thank goodness. Never fear. Hopper is here.
I can fight.
Better than any of us.
Gotta sit this one out.
Now, I need you safe.
Leave it to the adults.
This thing is after you. It's not after me.
I don't think it's gonna be that easy though. They're gonna get caught up in the fight.
Oh, you're bleeding.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Here.
Okay. Here. Lay down. What's wrong?
Uh-oh. Did Billy do something?
What the hell?
I mean, he has been tracking them.
Ignition cable's gone.
Yeah, it's Billy. Just been outside waiting. Get out of the car, guys. You might want to get out of the car. Yeah. It's not looking very right.
Лейтенант? Какой лейтенант?
Лейтенант Молотов? Jim. This is crazy.
Yeah, nobody heard that.
Jim,
She's been using her power non-stop for a while now.
Попрощайтесь с солнцем.
There's
А
a
зачем
password.
солнце? Когда мы есть друг от друга, товарищ.
Товарищ.
И бутылка столичный.
Can't believe that works. Why do you need to turn it over all the way
I told you.
to get that out?
Physics.
Could have just opened it sideways.
How do we get it open?
There should be a latch. Check under the wheel. See it?
I don't know. Hold on.
Here's Billy. Oh, not Billy. The mind flare is here. God damn it. It's on the roof.
Got it.
God damn it. Yep, they can see him.
Griswold family, this is Scoop Group. Do you copy? Over. Griswold family, I repeat.
Too late.
Griswold family.
I told you, radio silence.
Yeah, but we have a problem.
What kind of problem?
Big one. A goddamn big one. The Terminator's on his way down, so I don't think Hopper can even get out to help. True. It's using sound, so it can't actually see. Watch out for the Terminator, watch out for the Terminator.
Give me the code.
662-608-004.
Come on. Didn't work. Oh, God damn it.
Again? How could it be wrong?
The code is a number, a famous number. Plains constant. I
There
thought
must
I
be
knew it.
something else about it.
Thanks, constant.
You know it?
Not by heart. You?
I'm not a nerd.
You know it, don't you?
Get the car started. Go!
Alright, Nancy.
No.
What now?
Come on, Shane, we gotta go!
See?
This is Susie. I copy.
Susie!
Dusty Bun?
Dusty Bun?
Where have you been?
I'm so sorry. I've been really busy.
Dusty Bun.
Trying to say, Susie Poo, I promise I will make it up to you as soon as possible.
You can make it up to me now.
What?
I want to hear it.
Not right now.
Yes, now, Dusty Bun.
Susie Poo, this is urgent.
Yes, you're saving the world. I heard you.
Turn around. Look at what you see in her face.
Planck's constant is 6.62607004.
Alright, worked.
You just saved the world.
Gosh, I miss you, Dusty Bun.
Oh, damn it. Forgot these three weren't with them. He's supercharged, clear charge. I don't think that gave him stop him.
Billy, you don't have to do this.
Max tries to
Billy,
reach
your name's
him.
Billy. Billy Hargrove. You live on 4819 Cherry Lane. Billy, please, I'm Max.
Powers.
I'm 3.
I'm 3.
1, 2.
Knew it. Come on, Billy. Still think this is gonna be up to him somehow. Are our powers back? Fireworks.
This, you ugly piece of
Lucas. You deserve a fucking hand. Alright, lose this one, Hopper. Come on. Can't. Think of something, Joyce. Ah, tie the two keys together so when you turn one.
7 feet. You told her
She's gonna reach Billy
the
somehow.
wave was 7 feet.
Yeah, the man for his control is weakened now that he's weak, so.
There were seagulls.
Yes! The hell are you made of? Throw him in. Throw him in.
I'll see you in hell.
Alright. That's one way to shut it down. He's gonna protect Elle. Yeah, I knew it. Come on, hurry, hurry. The hopper is stuck down there, so Joyce, you gotta shut it down. He's killing the performance, though. why she's hesitating. Come on, he finally got the date. I did say that I wanted someone to die. Or someone needed to die. Didn't want it to be a holiday. I said someone needed to die, but I didn't want it to be Hopper. I didn't want it to be Hopper. Man, Will got tall. Just noticing that. Or did he? I'm wondering. Okay, they're still moving.
Still got it?
Yeah, they're still moving. I can't blame her. I mean, Bob and now Hopper. He's a new start, I guess. Well,
They'll come back.
I called it.
I know they will.
Thanks.
I hope they
Back to
don't,
walking, right?
honestly.
Yes.
Because you know that I'm gonna steal Cerebro from Dust.
Still think Hopper is alive, actually. He was that close to the gate
Finish
itself. I
box.
think there's some possibility that he
yeah,
was
sure.
pulled in, or the Mind Flayer actually pulled him in
What?
to
is
ensure that someone
Oh,
comes there to get him.
it's the speech Hop wrote for you and Mike. Speech. Yeah. You know, the heart to heart.
So she's going with Joyce then.
Something I've been wanting to talk to you both about. I know this is a difficult conversation, but I care about you both very much. And I know that you care about each other very much, and that's why it's
Yeah, after his
I've been
daughter
stuck
died.
in one place.
Time
In a
stopped.
cave, you might say. A deep, dark cave. And then I left some Eggos out in the woods, and you came into my life, and for the first time in a long
Just got them back together and they're splitting up again.
And sometimes it's surprising.
You are officially a nerd. Alright, Erica. I want Erica to join the team. I don't mind. I don't care what anyone
Keep on
says.
growing up, kid. Don't let me stop you. Make mistakes, learn from them. But please, if you don't mind,
Keep the door
for the
open.
sake of your poor old dad, keep the door
3
open.
inches.
3 inches.
I can remember standing
Change.
by the wall
That's the theme of this season. Change.
and the guns.
The last closing the gate was it, and all his influence is now gone. But why would they still be trying to open the gate? I didn't even think we'd still be seeing one of these. It's not over. Alright, our final episode of Stranger Things Season 3. Fantastic season. Absolutely fantastic season. Alright, so first off, I'm gonna give touch on some of the things that I liked, some of the things that I didn't like, and then my overall view of the opinion of the season and where it ranks, right? So the MVP of this season, obviously for me, is Hopper, right? I know there were a lot of talk throughout the season about Hopper being that angry white male, and it put a lot of people off. But for me, I mean, he's been consistent with his character since the very first season. It's not something that we're just now being introduced to. He's a very impulsive guy. That is Hopper, and as he's pointed out numerous times, since the death of his daughter, he's not cared very much about a whole lot, and it was good to see this season to see his character fleshed out a bit more. Reach out to Joyce, try to learn how to be a father, really, because he was once before lost his daughter, and you had to learn that all over again. Learn how to and also how to fall in love again with Joyce, right? And Joyce and Hopper together. I don't know. There was a lot of romance this season, which I mean, I wouldn't say it took away from the season itself. They weren't my favorite moments, if only because I mean I don't care much about the teen drama or the teen romance part of it. I mean it fits in with the characters, so that much worked. But I didn't care much for it as much as I did Joyce and Hopper themselves, and so Joyce and Hopper's relationship, they were the only ones that I actually really cared about, if I'm being honest. Sure, Nancy and Jonathan had their thing, and their dynamic. They had a good dynamic, right? And there were some interesting conversations that sparked as a result of it. The Nancy working at Washington Post and the misogyny that occurred, in the 70s and 80s that she had to deal with, and especially, working in that industry, right? In news, but Jonathan himself as well, his background and kind of shining a light on the death of middle or the struggles at Middle America, at the time, and the rise of the malls and stuff like that. So there are a lot of issues in and surrounding Nancy and Jonathan that raised some interesting questions and some interesting conversations. So I like their dynamic. I just didn't care much about the relationship, not as much as I did Hopper and Joyce, and perhaps that is because of what happened last season with Bob and the way that we lost Bob, and it's unfortunate that we had to lose Hopper in a similar fashion this season. And yes, I know. Very first episode of this season, I said we need to lose someone so that there could be more weight to the threat, right? So I did want to lose someone. I thought we needed to lose someone, right? So the stakes could actually feel real, and we lost someone. I didn't want it to be a Hopper, but I suppose having it being one of the kids would be even more. I would be very dark. So I guess it has to be one of the adults. And it couldn't have been a secondary character. We did lose Billy, but I'll touch on Billy later on. We did lose Billy, but we needed to lose someone who was there from the very beginning, right? For the characters to grow, I felt it was essential for the story to continue, and because of what happened to Hopper, I know we'll definitely be getting a season 4, and as I mentioned, we'll definitely be seeing Hopper again. I don't believe Hopper is actually dead. So what I believe happened, I mean, at the end there when Joyce turned the key, either the gateway was partially open and he was blown in somehow, some weird way. And we'll notice at the end that no one mentioned anything about finding a body or anything to that extent. Nothing was mentioned. There was no funeral or anything like that for him. At least not that I saw. So I think either the gate opened and Hopper fell through somehow, and he's in the upside down, or, and I believe it's the latter, not the former, but either of the two would work. The Mind Flayer himself, waiting for the gate to actually open, was actually there when the keys were being turned, and he somehow pulled Hopper in to the Upside Down. And in doing that, he's made it, he's given himself a bargaining chip right then and there, should he cross paths with 11 again, right? And if that's not enough, he may very well use Hopper as a way to force them to not interfere when he tries to open the gate again, or to actually open the gate themselves to rescue Hopper, right? Go on a rescue mission to get Hopper from the other side, but to do that, they would have to open the gate somehow, and give him the opportunity to cross over. So I don't believe Hopper is dead. I believe Hopper is stuck in the Upside Down, and the Mind Flayer is going to use him as some sort of leverage over 11 later on, right? Now, that is what I believe happened. Is it what I think should have happened? I'm not entirely sure. As I've said before, I think someone needs to die, and the tragedy that was felt now would feel cheapened if they bring Hopper back later on. So I think it should be permanent. He should stay dead, but I don't believe the writers will actually do that. So but that's it. Joyce and Hopper, two of my favorite moments this season. Alexei being an honorable mention, of course. The adventure with them and Maury and Alexei, it was just a joy to watch. It was a joy to watch. Billy, wanted to touch on Billy for a bit as well. He's definitely one of my favorite moments of this season. And yes, I hated Billy last season, and to some extent, listen, I understand the actor is doing a fantastic job, but Billy was a creep last season. He was a total dick. He was a bit of a racist dick, if I remember correctly, because of his approach, his objection to Max dating Lucas because he's black. So Billy was no saint, right? But the character's development this season, and it took a bit of a weird turn, because I mean he was a total dick up to the point where he was taken over as a host, and he only became, he only developed a conscience at the end. So it was a total flip, right? So his character wasn't untarnished, and during this season or by the end of it. But in some ways, he did redeem himself, and as we learned more about him, about his past, I wouldn't say that's a justification for him being the bully that he was. There's never any justification for that. I firmly believe that. But it did give us some insight into how he became the way he was, abusive dad, and what happened to his mom. I'm not sure what happened to his mom. It appeared as though she left. As to why she didn't take the kids with her still remains a mystery. But Billy was definitely a standout this season, and I called it. I said earlier on, once he became a host, that okay, this is gonna come down to Billy. The moment they and that was pretty much cemented when they didn't make him a part of the Mind Flayer. When he didn't melt like everyone else and join them, I was like, okay, if they didn't kill him now, then he has a more important role to play. So he's gonna be integral in taking the Mind Flayer down. So. Because the Mind Flayer was weakened at the mall, that gave 11 the opportunity to actually reach Billy, and for him to push through the Mind Flayer's control and actually save her, and in that way saving everyone else. Well, maybe not so much. I mean, at that point in the story, 11 already lost her abilities, so the stopping the Mind Flayer was more dependent on closing the gates and not so much on 11 anymore, right? But I suppose, the Mind Flayer still seemed to be obsessed with her, even though her abilities were not present. But Billy was definitely a standout this season. The actor did a fantastic job from beginning to end. I enjoyed his performance the most this season. For season 1 and season 2, as I've mentioned several times, Will was the best actor, and he was the standout for those 2 seasons for me. So Billy took the crown this season. His lines were delivered excellent. His performance was just brilliant. He did a fantastic job. It's a thrilling ride, and of course, I cannot the throwbacks this season were some of the best. You know, they did a great job doing that in season 1 and 2 as well, but this really nailed it. Um, the thing, the Terminator, the Blob, even the Back to the Future movie in the cinema there. They were all done well, and they didn't step over the line where it became a bit too cheesy to be pulling on all these nostalgia heartstrings every single episode. They got just at the line, but they didn't cross the line. It didn't become too much. It was just enough, right? It was just enough. So I enjoyed that thoroughly. And I'm someone who I typically don't like when films rely too much on nostalgia to drive the story, and but it worked in this, and it didn't feel overwhelming in this season. So the Duffer Brothers did a fantastic job with that, with walking that line, and I guess we'll see what happens in season 4. This definitely ended on a cliffhanger. The Mind Flayer himself is definitely, he upped his game this season, and the budget shows. So that was some of my favorite scenes, and weird way performance this season. The Mind Flayer himself, right, or his new body, that is, right. As I said, it was very reminiscent of The Thing and The Blob from the 80s. That movie was grotesque, and immediately the moment I saw the very first Mind Flayer, when he merged with Tom from the Washington Post, the two bodies merged together. That was my immediate thought, The Blob. I hadn't seen that film in years, but and I don't know, it looks. It's there are similarities with The Blob and The Thing, but for some reason my mind always goes to The Blob and not The Thing. I don't know. I enjoyed The Blob more than I did The Thing. I don't know why. It's just my weird preference. But there are definitely similarities between the two. So the Mind Flayer was definitely one of my favorite things. His new form this season was definitely one of the best. And it was weird because it was just a blob of bodies put together, right? So. But it worked, and at the end there, we were reintroduced to the Demogorgon, who seems to become more human-like, right? Not quite sure what that means. It does give some, it does add to some of the theories that have been going around that perhaps the Mind Flayer himself is some entity that jumps from one dimension to the next, and each dimension that he enters, he assumes the form of the life form there and then takes it over. Right, and it's becoming more and more apparent that might be true, because his forms continuously seem to be becoming more human-like, right, or more compatible with humans. As before, even when he took over Will, it was noticeably different than his control over these hosts. So if that is the case, that would be very interesting. So maybe the Upside Down was another realm that. Maybe even the Demogorgons were a part of, and the Mind Flayer entered there and took over that realm, and then he's attempting to jump to this one now. So it's an interesting theory, and if that is the case, it would be mind blowing. It would be fantastic. Dustin and Steve, right? More so, I said before that I enjoy the characters more when they are together than they are apart, and that was one of my favorite things about the first season. Season 2 and now season 3 seems to be slowly it's slowly driving not necessarily a wedge, but it's breaking the characters apart, but not abruptly, so it doesn't feel too jarring. So season 2 was okay, they're here now. And in season 3, okay, they're here, and by the end of season 3, okay, they're gone. They're moving. So it's like it was preparing you for some major change to happen. And with the characters going off on their own for the most part, I do wonder what this means for season 4. I might imagine it's gonna, and this may actually be a good thing. And I think about it because. Each season we are introduced to more and more characters, and it's got to be a task to have every character on screen in some way, shape, or form, and still maintain the story, and it doesn't become too convoluted, right? By having them in separate locations, they can have different characters pop up here and there, Not necessarily be there for the entire season or even for the entire episode, but they can call on different characters to aid them in other ways. So I'm definitely interested to see how they will tackle that in season 4. So some of the things that I did not like, but before I touch on that, there is a question that's still hanging in my mind though about the gate itself and how it was closed. Right? They said at the end there that if they close the gate, then that would stop the mind flayer here. But wasn't the gate closed all along? So at the end there, when it was said, I was a bit lost as to what was happening, because they were trying to open the gate, which would suggest that the gate was already closed. I mean, they closed the gate, which is why that piece that left Will was still stuck on our side. So the gate was closed. So he was still very much able to survive in our dimension while the gate was closed. So how is it that, they were trying to open the gate again? Fine, it wasn't completely open, but how does that now affect this mind flayer, that piece of the mind flayer that's here? The gate was already closed. They just tried to open it again and then closed it. For, I don't know, maybe I could have missed something. So for those of you who may have caught it, if I missed it, post down below. Let me know if you have an answer for that. So just something that's still stuck in my mind, and maybe I'll give it another rewatch, and if I miss something, I'll be able to put the pieces together. All right. So some of the things that I didn't particularly thought were fantastic this season, right, or some things that were not fully developed, right. First off, 11, right? Now 11 is obviously one of everyone's favorite part of Stranger Things. My favorite part happens to be the kids as a group together, not necessarily 11. She's cool and that's great, but one of the things that I feel her character is somewhat left undeveloped majority of the times, because she's the excuse is that she's cool, we don't need to do anything else with her. They've made some attempts to correct that this season by building on her relationship with Hopper, with Max to some extent, because last season it was I hate Max because Mike can't have can't have female friends, right? So they tried to course correct in season 3 to make her character a bit more interesting, but that works. My only issue is where her abilities are concerned. That still remains unchanged. Now at the end here, they do remove her abilities, but there's no explanation as to why her abilities just stopped working. But the only thing she did was actually remove a piece of the mind flayer from her leg, even, right? So why did that affect her ability in any way? And I've said since this season has started that outside of losing someone, we do need to take the focus off 11 for a bit, because her abilities cannot be limitless, right? And I think, was it last episode, I likened her to Superman, and what usually happens with Superman, while he's one of the most popular comic book heroes out there outside of Batman, Superman can be a very boring character because he's just so OP, right? And there's not very much you can do with the character because he can just come in and stomp and he wins. Superman is mostly interesting when he has flaws, right? Either he turns evil, or his abilities have not completely developed, or he's being controlled or something. And I liken that it's the same thing with 11 here. We've had a character since season 1 who at the end of every season comes in, uses her abilities, saves everyone, and there are no repercussions to her using her abilities. Her abilities are limitless, right? She uses it to close the gate, even though they didn't have, without a key. She uses it to close the gate. And we kind of brushed over that a bit because it's still a bit fuzzy as to how her abilities can actually do that, right? So I've been saying all along that, we need to either limit her abilities or there need to be some repercussions to her actually using it. And I mean, I toyed with the idea that, perhaps at the end of this series, not the season, perhaps at the end of the series, it will be revealed that she has actually shortened her lifespan by consistently using her abilities, or she will have to stop using it at risk of shortening her life. Right? So something like that, I think, I mentioned before that needed to be in effect where she cannot continuously use her abilities without any repercussions. If the character is just perfect in that way, then it's a very dull character. And and in some ways, I guess the writers heard me, because at the end, the very last episode, they chose to actually nullify her abilities, so that she couldn't take the Mind Flayer out as easily as she has been several times. So, so someone heard me, and I think that was the right decision to make. But is it temporary or is it permanent? I believe it's going to be temporary, and if next season she is able to use her abilities, that is fine. But again, at the end of the series, there needs to be a cost, right? And at the very least, they need to be able to limit her abilities in some way. Okay, you don't use her abilities to just move toys around or sleep, because I mean, they've been showing us from the very first season that every time she uses her abilities, she gets a nosebleed. That cannot be normal. It's not something that you just disregard and say, oh, she has a nosebleed, okay, it's fine. There has to be a reason, right? So we've been brushing that aside for 3 seasons now, and there's been no explanation. Why does she get a nosebleed? Is there some effect that her ability is having on her body? Right? Or is it just a cue to say, okay, she's using her abilities? You know she's using her abilities when you see her nose bleeding. But it needs to mean something. So either limit her abilities where she can only use it for a short period, or if she continuously uses it, there is some after effects, or remove her abilities completely. I don't believe at this stage, yes, she has saved the team several times with her powers, but we can't keep revisiting the same trope over and over again. And we're going into the 4th season. I would hate to get into season 4 and it's back to square one with her just using her abilities to solve every problem once again. Alright, the theme of this season has been changed, so I think we do need to change things up a bit and go in a different direction. Right? I don't know what that's going to be, but it's good that they've chosen to nullify her abilities, albeit temporary. Hopefully it's permanent and we go in some other direction, right? As I mentioned before, maybe bring in her sister or some of the other kids. I imagine there are others that were experimented on. And this brings me to my next point, Will. I didn't add Will as one of my favorite parts of this season because he was not given a whole lot to do, which is why he's on this list of my not so favorite things this season. Again, still absolutely love the actor. He's my favorite part of Stranger Things so far. Season 3, again, he had very little to do, so he wasn't a standout in season 3. When he was on screen, he was still brilliant, but I feel he was underutilized, right? Between season 1 and season 2, they've put Will through the ringer, right? And just as 11 had used her abilities, and I hope that there are some repercussions to continuously doing that, I would think that there would be something to come off Will having to go through everything that he has gone through since season 1 and season 2. Dude's been to hell and back. He literally died. Well, it wasn't him, but still, you get what I mean. So I felt Will was a bit underutilized, and I still maintain that if given that a piece of the Mind Flayer that attached itself to 11 was capable of removing her abilities, it does bring back the point: were her powers derived from the Mind Flayer to begin with, right? In season 1, I know we got flashbacks of the experiments that were conducted on her and her siblings, but we don't know exactly what was done to the kids to activate these abilities. I mean, I believe it does have something to do with the ooze and with the Mind Flayer himself. And if that is the case, why not have Will exhibit similar abilities? Initially, between season 1 and season 2, um, he was in a pod in season for the most part in season 1, and at the end of season 1, I thought that meant that okay, something was happening to him, but then in season 2 it was back to square one and he was just possessed again, and nothing became of it. So I felt he was underutilized, and I would have hoped that with everything that happened to him, that he would have developed some abilities as a side effect, assuming that's how the kids have been getting their abilities. I'm not 100% sure on that. I could be recalling things incorrectly, or if it was actually indeed shown how they were given their abilities. But that is what I want for Will. That's what I still hope to see for Will in future seasons, maybe. Maybe not. That might not happen, but I still want to see more for the character, especially given how much of season 1 and 2 he actually carried. And while 11 is the fan favorite, that is fine. She's one of my favorites as well, but there's no doubt that Will was the heart of season 1, and season 2 he carried the hell out of that season. Even though I enjoyed the moments with 11 in season 2 with her going on her adventure, but the moments where I was, even with all that happening and her sister's abilities and her abilities, even with all that happening, the thing I was most impressed about was his performance and everything that was happening with him. So Will is still my favorite character. I felt she was underutilized, but again, that is just my personal opinion. So I do hope to see the character developed a bit more in the next season. So that brings me to Steve and Robin. It's a bit interesting. Again, aside from the theme of this season being change, there's been a lot of focus on relationships, and between Joyce and Hopper, Nancy and Steve, and Robin and Jonathan, Nancy and Jonathan, Robin and Steve here. There's been a lot of focus on relationships, and everyone is getting hitched, and that seems to be the thing. Relationships they fit well into it, but I didn't care too much about it. All right. Again, it was never the focus. It was usually in the background to play up some other part of the plot to progress the storyline somewhere else. But I didn't care for the relationships. As I mentioned before, Joyce and Hopper were the only ones that I actually had some interest in. But Robin and Steve were an interesting case, right? We spent a lot of time with them and Dustin, and it was fun to watch and to see Robin kind of become a part of the group. And so I suspect we're going to be seeing more of her in later seasons. And the fact that she and Steve have now become inseparable, if she's getting hired, he needs to get hired too at the same place. So that's interesting. But the relationship, I don't know. I mean, it would have been a bit predictable for them to end up together, but it's even more predictable for them to not be together now, and then they're going to end up later. They're going to end up together in the next season, which is what I suspect will happen. She did say, okay, yes, she's interested in girls, but she did say that she had a crush on him, and she did go through the trouble of saying, okay, I liked you, and I don't understand why she would go through all of that just to tell him that, okay, I like girls. Why tell him you had a crush on him or any of that stuff, only to say I like girls? So I imagine perhaps she's bisexual and eventually they will end up together. And I would prefer if they don't. As I've said before, not everyone in the show needs to be hitched together. Those that are together, it's fine. But every single person doesn't need to be. Will doesn't need to be. If Robin and Steve chose to remain just friends, I would honestly prefer that. I like their dynamic as is before any of that other stuff got involved in it. So I like that. It was interesting. Of course, there's Dustin and Susie, who we didn't meet until the very last episode, but it was very well played. Very well played. Susie, can you hear me? Was what the second episode, and or was it the first or second episode? And um, we didn't actually meet her until this one to give us Planck's constant. So it was very interesting to get that, to have that come back to the very last episode. Um, but I'm happy for Dustin. I'm happy for Dustin that he finally, she's actually real, right? No one believed him, but she's real, and I believed him when he said it. I believe Dustin. Um, so I'm happy for Dustin. 11 and Mike, the romance that everyone is most concerned with, because they're for the most part. 11 is the focus of the series. But the relationship is my least favorite of any of the others in the show. Again, as I said before, perhaps it's just a teen drama that I'm just not a fan of. But it works. It works. Not quite sure what will become of their relationship now that they're separated. But it'll be an interesting dynamic, right? The show seems to be growing with the characters. Everyone is growing up, so it's going to be interesting to see them move into the next phase of their life and how that changes their relationship. Not just the couples, but also the original four boys that started this whole thing in their basement playing Dungeons and Dragons. Their relationship is what I'm most interested to see how it develops. Dustin has his girlfriend now, so he's fine. Lucas has Max. They're still together, still in Hawkins, so they're great. Mike and 11, of course, will feel it the most because they're now, they're separated. And Will, of course, isn't in a relationship, which, again, I'm fine with. And I don't know, there were a lot of rumors going around, when that episode when he had that moment outside with Mike about wanting to stay in the basement forever and play Dungeons and Dragons, and people were all over the internet asking, does that mean that his character is gay? Does that mean that his character is gay? Why does he have to be gay to want to stay in his basement forever and play games with his friends? That is the dream, right? That's the dream. Nobody wants to grow up. Growing up sucks, okay? For the most part. Will, and I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens to Will, right? They've moved out of the town now. We're not quite sure what will happen to them, but I'm interested to see how the relationships, whether it will put a strain on their relationship. Will they grow further apart? Will they grow closer together? Interested to see the change. Now, my views on the season overall. I said at the very beginning of this episode that season 1 was still at the top for me because of the world building and just the boys and how this was introduced, how this all started and how it ended. As a matter of fact, it was just fantastic. And season 3, now that I've seen this, the very last episode, still ranks just below season 1 for me. Above season 2, but below season 1. As I've said before, I've said several times before that for me, Stranger Things season 1 should have been considered an 8-hour movie. That was it. It was a perfect 8-hour movie. I didn't particularly want a season 2 or season 3. When I got season 2 and season 3, I absolutely loved it and I wanted more. But I don't think it was necessary to make another season. I thought season 1 stood on its own very well. It had a fantastic conclusion, a fantastic cliffhanger, having Will stand there at the end, looking in the mirror, touching the back of his neck, sensing the presence of the Mind Flayer, and you just didn't know what's going to happen next. And it was open for interpretation, right? What's going to happen? And I love that about it. Season 1 was fantastic, introducing the Upside Down, the Demogorgons. It was just fantastic. Season 1 overall remains my favorite season of Stranger Things. And it's going to be tough to top that, to be honest. I don't think anything else, even with all the nostalgia pulling on the heartstrings this season, it still didn't measure up to season one. And the bigger budgets that were obvious with the Mind Flayer this season. It was fantastic. I loved it, but it still couldn't outmatch season one for me. But again, season three has some fantastic moments. And I've said before that season one, the best thing about season one is the characters together, working together. And because season three has to develop these characters a bit more, which means, characters growing apart, then they have to come back together to solve the problem, but then they have to separate again. That makes it, I don't know, that makes it a bit more difficult to surpass season one for me. Because that friendship, that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that feeling that you got in season one, going on an adventure with your friends, that's the part that was missing from season two and season three. In season three, of course, it was there to some extent. It was just that the characters were not together. They were in their own little small groups, doing their own thing, and then they had to converge and figure things out. But that part, that remains consistent in season one, and that is why season one remains one of my favorites. So I'm not sure that will change. I don't know if that will change. Our characters are moving on to a new town. Joyce, I imagine she's going to be adopting 11 now that Hopper's out of the picture, albeit temporarily. I still believe it's temporary. That should be interesting. A good dynamic between 11 and Will, right? That would be very interesting. Right? In a lot of ways, I think I mentioned before, in a lot of ways, Will and 11 are very similar, right? They're in terms of their awkwardness, they're very similar, and they're they're a little emotionally stunted in terms of growth compared to the other characters, and that's what I like about them. They're very quirky and weird, and so I like those two characters. I mean, I don't see them being a couple really. As I said before, I don't care about the couple stuff. Yeah, but it would be very interesting to see those two interact together, because they've not actually had a lot of interactions throughout the 3 seasons, if I remember correctly. They didn't. No, they didn't, which is weird. Yeah. They've not interacted a whole lot. So there's still new things that can happen in the next season. And I mean, Will and Jonathan will have a little sister now. Who's older, Will or 11? I'm not sure, but they'll have a sister. And as I said before, I think Joyce will be a fantastic mom. She, like Hopper, is very overprotective, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And in some ways, she can, there's a lot that she can teach 11 that Hopper just, as you saw at the earlier episodes of this season, Hopper just doesn't know how to deal with, which is why it would have been such a fulfilling thing to have them together, but Hopper's out temporarily. Hopper's out, unfortunately. The town of Hawkins themselves, I mean, I still have some questions in terms of, we had one question answered in terms of why the Russians chose to come to Hawkins instead of opening the gate elsewhere. But this does mean that they're going to try to open the gates back in Russia, I guess, or I don't know how the family is going to get tied back into things again with them, if they're going to go back to Hawkins to try to open the gate there again. But I mean, what's the U.S. military doing? They are aware of it now. They were aware of it before. They've not been doing a very great job, and they came in at the very end after everything had ended. Right, so I imagine the Russians are still going to be the villains in the next season. They didn't catch a single one of them. The place was empty by the time they got there. But we did get the Terminator. Hopper did kick his ass. R.I.P. Hopper, but you took the Terminator down. He took the Terminator down, right? So that was some of my more enjoyable moments this season, right? Just the back and forth between Hopper and the Terminator. One one win, and then at the end, I'll see you in hell. Loved it. Uh, but I suspect the Russians are going to be the villains again at the end, I suppose. There's still some questions as to why the Russians are trying to open the gate. Right. Before, I think, some of you had said, okay, perhaps they're doing it for the same reasons the Americans were, which is to get an advantage, win the war, something like that. But I don't know. Are they not noticing bodies that are dropping, or the giant monsters? They know because they have a Demogorgon. So is it worth the risk, or do they feel that they can somehow control the Mind Flayer? Is that it? And who ordered them to? All right. Initially, when this was all happening, I assumed that the Mind Flayer was controlling someone in the Russian military to open the gate so he can cross back over. But no, that no longer seems to be the case. But it must be, right? Because at the very beginning of the first episode, when they showed the Russians in the facility, two of the military personnel that came in there, I don't remember if one of them was the Terminator, but one of them, superhuman strength, lifted dude with one arm and told him to get it done. That person had to have been a host, because you've seen what happened with Billy. When Billy was a host, his strength was magnified. So when I saw that, okay, it's like, all right, the Mind Flayer is controlling someone higher up, and he has some foot soldiers, but he's forcing the scientists to open the gate so he can cross back over. But now it feels as though Mind Flayer had nothing to do with it, and the direction we're being led in is that the Russians are trying to open the gate for their own personal needs or greed, right? So where does the Mind Flayer come in? Because no one at the facility was actually a host. At least I don't think so. Billy was the only one that we saw react when when the Mind Flayer was damaged. So they're just trying to open the gate for shits and giggles. I don't know. So I'm not sure what direction is it we're intended to go, or is it supposed to be left open to interpretation? Is it the Mind Flayer that's trying to open the gate, or is it just humans trying to open it? I don't know. So that I would like to be answered, but I don't know. Perhaps they are aware of what's on the other side, but they just believe they can control it. They have a Demogorgon locked in a cage like an animal. They're feeding a prisoner to it, but they obviously are not controlling it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in a cage. So I don't know. I don't know. Well, for the series itself, I do hope. As I mentioned before, I didn't want there to be a season 2 or 3, but I do hope this doesn't go beyond season 4. As I've said many times before, the series curse is 4 or 5 seasons, or begins at the end of 4 or 5 seasons. There are very few series, whether TV or streaming, that consistently remain good beyond 4 or the 5th season. They get terrible after that. Now, I know Netflix has been getting a lot of success with Stranger Things, and the Duffer Brothers have done a fantastic job with the series so far, but please do not milk the series beyond season 4. Tell the story that you need to tell. I think they've done a fantastic job with it. You can have a conclusion, a wrap up of the entire series in season 4. Netflix can even push that to 10 episodes if they want to. I don't think they need to, but should they need to, 10 episodes, wrap the series up, and this will be one of the best series ever. Please do not drag this on to 5 and 6 and 7 seasons. It will suck, right? And I'm not saying that there aren't TV series that have accomplished similar runs or even longer, but the quality doesn't remain the same for the quality doesn't remain the same. Let's not have a repeat of Game of Thrones. All right, tell the story, and please just conclude it in season 4, and I'll be happy. And I mean, at some instance, I imagine the Duffer Brothers want to move on to other projects. So I would think they want to wrap this up. I mean, this is their baby, right? So if they have a story to tell, I would want them to tell it. But I mean, it doesn't have to end here. But you wrap up this story with these characters, and if needs be, later on you can do something else, maybe a Stranger Things movie or an animated series or something, if there are other stories that need to be told. But for these characters, I think we've done them to death, right? One more chapter in their lives in season 4 would be great, but outside of that, I think we're going too far beyond season 4. So we'll see what happens. But I thoroughly enjoyed this season. The monsters, the kids, I don't know, Joyce Hopper, R.I.P. Hopper, gonna miss him. But again, I don't believe Hopper is dead. He's coming back next season. We'll see. But thoroughly enjoyed this season. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. No idea what I'm gonna be watching next. But thanks guys for coming along for the ride. Be sure to post down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this season. Also, where does season 3 rank with your in your favorite Stranger Things ranking? As I mentioned before, for me, season 1, then season 3, then season 2. Be sure to post down below. Let me know. Hit like or subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.